about a month ago, we started to get all these rumors about the PS3 and the Vita stores shutting down. And that sent people into a frenzy because eventually Sony said, hey, by the month of July, many of those things are going to go goodbye. And that led to people buying a lot of PS3 digital exclusives, PS1 games, Vita games, PSP games. And now Sony said, okay, maybe that was not the best idea. So my bad, it's going to be okay. But it did beg the question of, which are some of those PS1, PS2, these classic games that digitally, they may be a lot more cost effective to buy, or just generally speaking, hey, just go back and get some of these PS1 and PS2 games. So on another episode of A Cast of the Past, we're going to be talking about some of those classic games worth buying or playing in 2021 and beyond. And then afterwards, we're going to have that legacy conversation about the PlayStation 3 console with yours truly, Juan Velas. I am from Puerto Rico. Joining me from Boston, Massachusetts, we have Ryan McNulty. Now, Ryan, in your case, you have a PS3 that just refuses to freaking die. He's got the fat console that people want.
The 60 gig with the PS2 backwards compatibility. It's still kicking. It's because I leave it dormant for like a year at a time before I boot it back up again. That's how it survives.
Exactly. And considering the fact that it works and you have the full physical backwards compat, but even then, when you found out that it was supposedly and then confirmed and then taken back, what was your reaction to the store shutting down?
It was, well, I better go buy a bunch of PS1 and PS2 classics that are really, really expensive to buy now that game collecting has absolutely taken off, as well as probably take a look at any, PS3 games that just happen to not be on the PS4 stores. Because I didn't want to be in a situation where some of these games that I plan to play maybe eventually, I didn't want to be kind of stuck with no digital option and then having to resort to paying way too much money for a physical edition of it.
No, I totally get you. And I had a similar situation where, look, for those that don't even have a PS3, PS1 games cost between $6 to $10. 6 to 10. There's a couple of games like The Misadventures of Trombone. That game goes for over $400, people. Over $400! It's just ridiculous. Or like $6 to $10 on the PSN. And then on the PS2, the average price, with the exception of, I think it's like Psychonauts, it's $5. The rest are $10. And then you have a game like God Hand, $10 digitally, or about $100 physically. There is a caveat that I feel like I got to mention, which is it has been confirmed that the PS3 has an internal battery, kind of like the Pokemon battery, like the Pokemon games where, once that battery dies, you lose the save. With the PS3, if that happens, you actually lose access to your digital stuff. Like the PS3 will not allow you to play your digital games because it's trying to check up on the expiration dates and all that. There are ways of fixing it, of repairing it, but it's still a concerning thing. But I just wanted to get that out of the way and have like a hypothetical conversation of, when you think about the PS1, let's go with the PS1 first. You're like, man, if you have a PS3, you want to boot it up because all PS3s play PS1 games physically and digitally. Which would be one of those first games that you're like, you gotta buy this game and play it?
Unsurprisingly, I'm going to bring up Silent Hill as one of the best PS1 games to pick up. The physical copy, which I do have, is pretty expensive now. And Silent Hill is a game that it didn't get any remake or re-releases. So that's kind of a tricky thing where even, Silent Hill 2 and 3 got re-releases, even if it's a terrible version, or there's like Xbox versions and things like that. This one, it's not on any collection. Konami just doesn't do a good job of like re-releasing their games.
They just like their game machines.
Well, I mean, I guess they do a good job with like Metal Gear and stuff, but anyway, yeah, Silent Hill, better than this.
I mean, yeah, better than Silent Hill, sure. Let's go with that.
So it's like, okay, do you want to pay $80+? Although I think the last you looked, it was like $200 when there was the scare with the store closing, I think. But yeah, at least $75+. But you can pick it up for like $8 on the PS3. I don't know why they haven't put it on PS4 or anything, but
get this. So right now, this auction has two. This is where it's going to be a painful conversation. Like as we talk about games, I'll look it up on eBay. So right now on eBay, 27 bids with 2 days left. What do you think that's going for right now with 2 days left?
I'm going to say $220.
Okay, it's at 91. It's at 91,
Okay.
but
All right.
it's got 2 days left and 20
I got
hours.
freaked out when you sent me that screenshot the other day and I saw a bunch of like $200 prices.
A greatest hits copy, buy it now, is going for 160. A greatest hits. So it's more than double.
You know, I don't feel as bad about getting it for like $70 like last October now.
Yeah, not bad at all.
Another one I definitely want to bring up is Castlevania Symphony of the Night, because that's another one that the physical copy, last I checked, was around $90. I don't know where it's at now, but that's another really great game. The whole Metroidvania style with going through the castle kind of more openly. I've never been able to beat that game, but it has some awesome music and it's a lot of fun to play. I just happen to be very bad at it, but it's regarded as one of the best Castlevania games.
And right now that's going for $200. Buy it now.
Woo.
So this whole situation, like the prices will go down. The fact that Sony confirmed this, like a lot of PS3 games, like tripled in price. And this happens with the game market. It happened with like GameCube, and GameCube is still just like freaking stupid when it comes to prices run. It's insane, man.
That's the crazy. That's one, I guess, because a lot of the games weren't like, they didn't make as many copies of the games. That must be part of the reason it spiked up so much compared to, that's just one of those anomalies that I'm still trying to understand. But it could also be people hitting that nostalgia age for GameCube.
Definitely. And as you look some stuff up there, one game I'm going to talk about, I actually had this, people recommended this game on my channel, and I thought it's like $6 right now. It's a Klonoa, The Door to Phantomile. Had you played this game?
I have not, but I did check out your Player Juan video.
Yeah,
and it actually
damn right
looked,
you did.
I did, and it did catch my eye and looked pretty interesting.
And that game is like a ridiculous price. I'm just going to look it up right now, but for those who don't know, it's a 2.5D platformer. So it's side-scrolling, the character's 2D, but the world is 3D. It's like this early PS1. When you think of a PS1 kind of 3D game, like this comes up, Tomba kind of comes up, and it's stupidly expensive. Like right now, a buy now copy is $280, Ryan. And that is the lowest one that I can find.
Is that worth it in 2021?
Hell no. Just spend like the $6 to $10, people. Or the Japanese copy. I think this is a game. It does have dialogue, but I don't think it's enough. Like a Japanese copy goes for $35, and it's got a pretty cool cover. So that's one game I wanted to bring up. Another one, and this is just one of my favorite games of all time, is Final Fantasy Tactics. You know, people, when you think about the PS1, everybody's like Final Fantasy 7 through 9, and then you have the PS1 version of Chrono Trigger with a lot of like loading screens. But this to me is the defining Final Fantasy game because the story was made better in the PSP version. The translation in this was a little rough. It's one of the only games that I've actually beaten more than 3 times. And you know, Ryan, I don't do that a lot. And this is like a 50-plus hour game. And the story is still to this day one of my favorite adult-oriented stories. There's so much complexion in the characters, and this is around $10. And just the soundtrack alone will make you want to play this game. And I actually have a Black Label physical copy, and I haven't looked this up. So this is going to be, let's see here, Final Fantasy Tactics PS1.
In the meantime, I will mention Symphony of the Night is something that's available on, I think it's on PS4 and Xbox and stuff. So you do have more options there. But if you happen to be going on the spending spree, that it's another option available to you.
Exactly. And that's not nearly as much. $50. I mean, no disrespect to Final Fantasy Tactics. I did expect that to be a little bit higher.
It's still appreciated about $10 if you think about it.
Exactly. And I think other games that are interesting are like the Twisted Metal games, and I'm gonna fast forward and also include Twisted Metal Black on the PS2 because I mean that game's just so freaking good.
Yeah, a lot of people regarded Twisted Metal 2 as the best back in the day, but I think was it you or Keith that went back and played it like about a year ago?
Yeah, we were going to review it on the podcast, and I was the one that I started playing it, and it's not a bad game, but once you play Twisted Metal Black and then you try to go to that one, it's like, oh man, that doesn't hold up too well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of people didn't like Twisted Metal 3 back in the day, but I feel like 3 was a little bit more refined than 2, even in some cases. Some other games that I'm not 100% sure have been released on other, re-released or anything, but Parasite Eve is a game I've been meaning to play for a long time. And that's something that is available that I'll most likely be downloading. Dino Crisis, something we will be talking about pretty soon. Hint, hint, wink, wink, is also available. So that's something, good to have. And probably Dino Crisis 2 is on there as well, I think.
Yeah, they're both there. And just a couple of last PS1 games here. I got to bring up Mega Man Legends 1 and 2. I picked up the first one again recently after many years, and in other episodes, like we'll be talking about games like Super Mario, right? And those games didn't have any right to be as good as they are. Mega Man Legends has got voiceover, cutscenes, third-person shooter. It should fail. And the first one is a little rough mechanically, right? It is a little rough mechanically, not going to lie. But what is there is so good. And the graphics were way ahead of their time because this is like cel-shaded before people knew you could make cel-shaded games. And I think that right there is what made that game hold up.
It's kind of like the anime style for... Yeah, like it looks pretty good for its time for a PS1 game, and you get that little monkey that moves around when you save.
Oh, that dance is glorious! Yeah. It's freaking amazing.
But I watched Juan rage on a stream playing Mega Man Legends against that boss thing that was shooting the rockets.
No. It was awful. It was awful. And for those curious, the PS3 store is almost impossible to browse classic games. As a matter of fact, like. Outside of North America, I think it was Europe or something, they removed any classic references. So unless you actually search the name of the game, it is legit just not available. Even on the PS3 store, when you go to classics, you can categorize by PS1. That still only gets you less than half of the games in the store. That's because, and this is just stupidly weird, all PS1 games can be played on PSP. Not all of them can be played on Vita, which makes no freaking sense. So because of that differentiation, like some games are PS3 games, but they're actually PS1 games. So make sure to look up PS1 as an ONE altogether. Go to classics and go by genres because it's pretty hard to find them. And there's over 200 available on the store.
Or just look up a list online and then just input the name of the game.
Right, that's not as fun though. It's not as fun. It's the journey, right? It's the journey, not the destination.
I'm just saying, there's other options. Okay,
there are, and hey, we have some We're straight up looking at the Wikipedia list right now of some of the PS2 classics available on PS3. Now, PS2 classics are not PS2 remasters because on the PS3 we got a lot of those, like the Sly Cooper HD collection. Ratchet and Clank's HD collection. Those are different because it is PS2 games that they HD-fied. Kind of like Shadow of the Colossus, right? They made it widescreen, bumped up the frame rate, the resolution. PS2 classics are literally emulated versions of PS2 games on PS3. That means even if you have a Slim that is non-backwards compatible, like myself, you can actually play any of these games. So don't think like, oh, I ain't got that fat model Ryan has. Like, no, that doesn't matter, people. You can still play these games. So which of these, like, are based on the list that you saw, Ryan, is there anything that comes to your mind?
So PS2, I think, is a little bit of a different ball game in this situation because I think it's a little bit easier to find a lot of those PS2 classic games, and most of them are cheap. Like if you want to play like Vice City or something like that, you can usually pick up a copy for a very affordable price.
Yeah.
And if you have a way to play PS2, then I think it's not as crucial because I think PS1's a little bit harder to find. But one thing that did catch my eye looking at this list was a series I've been meaning to get into, and that's the Fatal Frame series. So it's definitely interests me with the whole survival horror. A lot of people say, like, if you like Silent Hill and Resident Evil, this is a series to check out. And this is one where I think sometimes the physical games for these can be tricky to find. I know at least with a few of them. And that's something I'll probably be looking to download some of those games and try them out.
I'm going on the eBay machine because I am curious about that. Oh, right. So Fatal Frame is interesting because there's two versions of these games. Like, I know there's multiple games, but they had reprints. So the reprints go for a lot less. Even then, we're talking about $60 for a lot of these. So $60, $10, like, I don't know about you, Ryan, but my standard is if a physical copy of a game is 10, but the game is 20, I'd rather get the $20 physical copy. Now, if it's 10 digitally and 50 physically, that's where I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm willing to make the sacrifice.
It would depend. When it comes to spending big money on physical games, I'm pretty much only going to do it as like a collection piece if I really love the game. Thus, the whole Silent Hill thing. Like, would I pay more for like a boxed Zelda game? Of course. But when it comes to a game that maybe I'll try out the digital game, and if I really love it that much, I'll actually go and get the physical game just to have it in my collection. But I think it's nice to have that option to try it digitally and go from there.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think that one of the games that, once again, it was recommended to me, and I bought it on the PS3 is God Hand. God Hand is weird. This is a pretty expensive game. Like I mentioned, it's about $100, and it's a not a third-person shooter, third-person camera angle, beat 'em up, action adventure role-playing game with tank controls, kinda, but not really. So it blends so many things that it should go wrong, and it was lambasted when it came out. Like, reviewers, not happy. But what's there is really freaking good, and it rewards you for having a lot of patience. Like, you will die within seconds if you're not good, but once you figure out some gameplay mechanics, you go from getting killed to, like, blazing through the game. And I'm still, like, at the beginning of it, but I think that at $10, it's definitely worth a purchase because I do think it's like a pretty awesome game. That had you heard about it? Because it's also got like a weird title, and the cover is literally like a guy with a fist going through his mouth.
That is a game which, again, I was reminded of it watching your wonderful Player Juan channel.
Get them.
And I saw you talking about the game. And then I was like, that sounds super familiar. And I wonder, did you play this game before ever?
Yeah, so before, I actually... Because
I feel like maybe you talked about it way back in the day. Because when I saw that video, it really, like, it brought me back of, like, hearing about it.
No, because a couple of months ago...
Game, the artwork you've brought up on the video podcast looks very familiar.
It's bad though, but I actually won. It's like the weirdest story. I won a modded PS2 with a built-in hard drive, and then he had installed one game just to have a game included with it, and the game was God Hand. So I'm like, I have like this unwritten rule. Like, people, I know emulation is a thing, but I feel like I have more of a commitment with a game when I own it. So even though I had it on my PS2, I still bought the PS3 version. Plus, it's like, with the HDMI out, it just looks a lot cleaner, but it's pretty damn good. So what else? What else are we talking about here?
I want to talk about a PS3 exclusive. I think it's digital only in the United States. So I'm, prepping for this conversation. I was looking around at games, PS3 games to get before the store closes. Of course, before we got the news that they're going to keep the store alive. And every list I go to, I go to one list, I see Tokyo Jungle. I go to another list, Tokyo Jungle. Another list, Tokyo Jungle. I'm like, what is this Tokyo Jungle? Why do I keep seeing Tokyo Jungle? So I look up some gameplay footage. And apparently this is a game that was like a hit everywhere else but the United States. It just didn't like take off. And I could see why, because maybe animal cruelty is a little bit of a thing in this. But essentially, the gist that I'm getting from seeing gameplay footage is that you play as an animal and you get to pick like your starting animal and you eventually unlock more and more. But I think the first two animals you can be is like a deer and a Pomeranian, like a little Pomeranian dog. And your objective is to like eat to survive. So if you're like a carnivore, you want to eat the other animals, and you want to be stealthy and like sneak up and attack them. And if you like sneak up perfectly, you can get like a clean kill on them. And then you eventually can unlock other animals to play as that are probably better and more effective than a Pomeranian. But that's pretty adorable to start out as one.
I mean, yeah.
And then if you want to go super hard mode, you can play as like an omnivore. You play as like a deer or something where you can only eat plants and you got to try not to be killed. So it's just a very like interesting game that like I've never seen anything like heard about anything like it. I could see maybe people are sensitive of like cute animals attacking and killing each other could maybe put some people off. But it's now intrigued me that I really want to try this out. Yeah, I don't think people like seeing dogs and cats and stuff being killed. But hey, it's in this world, it's eat or be eaten apparently. But it seems pretty interesting, and I definitely want to try it out now.
I actually have it as part of PlayStation Plus, so I didn't have to buy it. Even though like the day I unsubscribed from the service, I'm kind of screwed because it's like if you don't have access to that, then you can't get it. But I actually downloaded it because like you, everybody talked about it. The footage that I'm showing on the YouTube version of the show is the first time I'm actually seeing gameplay, and I'm just like, this is either the most interesting or boring game that I've seen, because you're just straight up playing as a dog in here, and they're, oh my goodness, he just ate her like a rabbit or something. Luckily, I'm not showing that right now on screen, even though it's animal on animal action. Yeah. Make of that what you will.
It's nature. That's what it is. But that is, yeah, it's an interesting concept. And I feel like it could be very intense about like trying to survive and everything. I mean, think about trying to play as like the deer. I would definitely, if you stream that, I'd definitely watch it. I think that would be pretty hilarious.
I'm actually very interested in playing it because it's not a game you think about. People understand first-person shooters. They understand platformers. But then you show something like this, and it's like, wait, what the hell is this?
And so I don't think it ever got a physical release, at least in the United States, and they didn't carry it over because I don't think it was a hit here. So they didn't carry it over to anything else. So this is potentially the only legal way to play the game in the United States.
I mean, people,
they may not have shut down the stores now, but you never know.
And just a couple of just lightning round recommendations. Even though I haven't played these games, there's so many Shin Megami Tensei games. I mean, when you talk about Persona, Devil Summoner, all of those are available on the store. There's like the Siphon Filter games, even the PS2 game, Omega Strain, I think it's called. So if you want to be able to celebrate the library of PlayStation, not just PS3, there's a whole lot of stuff in there. So I really would recommend just turn on your PS3 and take your time, because it's truly not easy to find a lot of these games. And if you have recommendations, please go to the Discord over at 8castofthepast.com/Discord. We have a video game section. You can drop all of that stuff over there. We have like a lot of people that love that PS1 Saturn generation that I know if you just like go in there, it's like, hey, suggest a good survival game that's not Silent Hill or Resident Evil for me to buy. Hey, there's like a Fatal Frame, and if you've played that, we haven't, so let us know what you think about it. Hey, thanks for checking out the video. If you liked it, please consider subscribing, and we are also available on podcast feeds, so search the name, click on the Sword and Stone, and enjoy a brand new episode every single Sunday.